Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's conference, which is a video conference entitled Europe's DeepSeek Moment, a Regenerative Path to Global Leadership. My name is Dietmar Schweisgut. I am the Secretary General of the Austro-French Centre for Rapprochement in Europe, and I'm very happy to say that we are doing this in broad cooperation with quite a number of organizations, including the University of Technology in Vienna, the Austrian Cultural Forum in Paris, the Institut Français in Austria, but also with Interface Cultures, Regenerative, and this is quite an undertaking for which I'm grateful that Christoph Thun-Hohenstein has been able to bring this together. He will be the moderator of today's session. He is a cultural manager of high prestige and a long and distinguished career, is well known. He was, among other things, heading the cultural diplomacy as Director General in the Foreign Ministry of Austria. He was for 10 years director of the prestigious Museum of Applied Arts in Vienna. He is a cultural manager, an author, and today, among other things, also the artistic director of the Future Platform ReGenerativa Vienna. Why did we come to focus on a theme which at the first moment might be a bit surprising? At a time when I think the general public attention is more focused on events in the United States and in China. There was a lot of attention on the potential and also the dangers of a company like Anthropic, how to deal with the outfall of a new program which could, of course, not only enable companies to build on a new dimension, but also go in a completely other direction. China has surprised the world quite a while ago with its DeepSeek development and is very actively, I think, also advancing with quite a number of companies which are less known in Europe and the United States. And it seems a bit that in the public perception, this seems like a race between the United States and China, with Europe either left behind or left in the role of a regulator instead of an innovator. So I think it's very fitting that we address not only the question of innovation in the AI in Europe, and not only the question of how to minimize risks and to regulate it, but how to take advantage of the huge potential in going into a new dimension. And that, I think, is the topic of today's focus on the regenerative path to AI and what it could mean for Europe's role in the future. And I think it's also very interesting that this is coming very much also from an angle of the arts and the culture, and to see how this could be used in a transformative process which is going well beyond what we have been discussing so far, and also potentially having a huge impact on the future of our societies. So with that, I once again am very grateful to Christoph and the panel which he will present. Without further ado, I will immediately hand over to him. Thank you, Christoph.
Thank you very much, Dietmar. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you also for your thoughtful remarks on the topic itself. My thanks go to our panelists, which I will very briefly introduce. Eva Fischer is a curator and director of Civa, Contemporary Immersive Virtual Art, a wonderful festival happening at Belvedere 21 every year. She's in general also a cultural manager and lecturer and based in Vienna. We have Peter Knees, who is a professor at the University of Technology in Vienna, TU Wien, and he just got his full professorship there, but he's also chair of UNESCO chair for digital humanism. which is great. And congratulations, Peter, to your recent promotion, which is fantastic. Laurent Mignonneau is a French origin media artist. Peter is also based in Vienna. Laurent is a media artist and professor at University of Arts Linz. University of Arts Linz is one of the outstanding arts universities in Vienna with a wonderful reputation. And you also, together with your partner, Christoph Thun, you have a long list of fantastic works relating to topics of the digital, but also of the ecological. And it's wonderful that you also participate. I dare say, youngest member here of our panel is Merve Sahin, who currently is also based in Vienna. I just had the pleasure to be present at an exhibition opening of hers last Friday. She dealt extensively also with the ideas in the Salzburg Festspielbezirk. So she's kind of at the intersection of architecture and art in a way, but she will tell us more about it. So thank you all for participating. I will say just a few words following up on Dietmar, and then you all have a maximum of 10 minutes to give your presentation. And then we have a first round of discussion between ourselves, and later also, of course, invite the audience to participate. You know, the last book I read on the topic of AI was by Eliezer Yudkowsky and his partner Suarez. And it's called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies. It's about superintelligence, and this is the most critical position, well known in the Valley or on the American West Coast regarding superintelligence. There's a lot of interesting substance in there, so I'll recommend the book to you. If it's really the kind of Bible that you should attend to is a different question. But this is very, very important to reflect about it. And the other thing is reading the newest issue of The Economist. One of the headline stories is From Cybersecurity to Biosecurity. The world must stop AI from empowering bioterrorists. This is the next big chapter, bioterrorism, because the systems have become so good at producing these poisonous substances that we really have to be very careful with the next moves. Again, it's involves Anthropic and others, of course. But the other side of the coin is, of course, that we have the LLMs, especially those where the weights are free, and you can go to a bank and kind of build your own system. And that is what also The Economist addressed a couple of weeks ago when it said, when it comes to the application of AI, Europe, especially with all its technologies in different fields, can still become a world leader in how to apply AI based on these systems such as DeepSeek. So you come from very different parts of the spectrum, and I'm really looking forward to your input in this regard, to this broad topic, and we'll start with Eva. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation and the introduction, Christoph, and thank you, Dietmar Schweisgut, for the introduction as well. I would like to approach the question of regenerative AI from the perspective of the upcoming Civa edition that Christoph Thun-Hohenstein already mentioned, which will be opened on November 12th at Belvedere 21. The media art platform and exhibition project Civa, that is a collaboration with the Belvedere Museum here in Vienna, is now entering its 6th year. And under the title Post-Acceleration, I want to examine a multi-layered concept of speed and simultaneity within what I call the post-acceleration condition. I understand post-acceleration as a contemporary state in which acceleration no longer appears as sequential events, but has become the atmospheric baseline of everyday life. Technological innovations no longer follow a linear narrative of progress, but emerge simultaneously. and at increasingly shorter intervals, what we also see in AI, of course. This produces a condition of permanent presentness that fundamentally reshapes perception, attention, and the capacity to act. Marshall McLuhan stated that the medium is the message. And also when talking about artificial intelligence, I believe it's important not only to think about AI being a tool or the content that can be created based on the huge data sets, but even more generally to anticipate how it will change and already changes our behaviors, our communication, and our everyday life. Multitasking, overload, constant comparability, also through social media, for example, and experiences of multiple overlapping crises converge. And they give rise to new forms of ambiguity, of polarization, and normative pressure. Against this backdrop, post-acceleration asks how this condition of simultaneity can be endured, reflected upon, and actively shaped. Civa this year presents and discusses resistant practices, artistic, scientific, and curatorial strategies, and community-based infrastructures that react to acceleration. And I have to say, to accelerationist movements, be it right or left, or even cute. We will talk about concepts such as resonance, speculative world building, and at the same time, the conscious practice of remaining with the here and now. I really appreciate Jenny Odell's concept of what she calls resistance in place in that regard. To resist in place is to make oneself into a shape that cannot so easily be appropriated by capitalist value systems, for example. Talking about values, I think Europe currently faces a profound civilizational question. It should not simply be about the question, how do we innovate faster? How do we compete in the global AI race? What do we produce there? But rather, what kind of intelligence do we want to cultivate? How will AI shape our lives, and how can we use it to create healthier environments instead of exploiting nature, human labor, and more than human ecosystems? At the moment, AI discourse, as we already heard, is still led by the US and to an extent China, and therefore dominated by acceleration, more scale, more productivity, more optimization, more extraction. But regeneration requires another logic, maybe not optimization, but relationality, maybe not endless growth, but coexistence, and not technological domination, but entanglement. And this is where I come also from a focus on quantum science and quantum thinking in the past cyber year. This is where quantum physicist and philosopher Karen Barad's concept of intra-action becomes very important to me. Barad replaces the idea of inter-action because interaction still assumes separate entities that exist before they meet. Intra-action instead means that entities emerge through relation itself. Observer and observed co-constitute one another. Matter and meaning are entangled, and apparatuses are not neutral. The medium is the message. For me, regeneration is not simply about making AI more sustainable. It is about transforming the underlying logic through which technological systems are imagined. And I believe that this is where the arts can contribute most powerfully, not by decorating innovation, but by expanding perception, by being critical, by destabilizing dominant imaginaries and narratives, and by making alternative relations between humans, machines, ecologies, and infrastructures thinkable and emotionally tangible. And perhaps this is where Europe's opportunity truly lies, not in becoming a faster AI power, but in developing a different cultural imagination of intelligence itself. Europe can become a global model for regenerative AI by combining open LLMs, such as the DeepSeek example, with Europe's strengths in public research, cultural diversity, ethical governance, and sustainable innovation. This also is the fundament of another project that I would like to mention briefly, an ongoing curatorial project initiated by Christoph Thun-Hohenstein that media artist Claudia Lacher and me have been curating and developing since 2024, also being in close contact with digital humanism and Peter Knies. It's called Imagine AI for Dignity, Fluid Visions for Regeneration. And in this project, we ask what AI as a cultural and political actor could become if it were shaped not through extraction, competition, and optimization, but through care, interdependence, plurality, and ecological responsibility. Through exhibitions, discourse, immersive environments, and artistic research, and I think also what Merve Sahin does in that regard is a fantastic example. We try to create speculative spaces in which regenerative technological futures become perceptible and imaginable. In the age of acceleration, maybe the most radical form of intelligence is resonance, as sociologist Hartmut Rosa would argue. Not the endless optimization of the world, but the capacity to remain in responsive relation to it. The question is therefore not whether AI will shape reality. The question is what kinds of realities and world relations we want to co-constitute through and with these systems. To create a real regenerative AI, Europe needs collaborations between scientists, technologists, artists, and policymakers that develop transparent, energy efficient, culturally inclusive, and publicly accessible AI systems. Thank you so much from my side.
Thank you so much, Eva. This is a fantastic spectrum that you have covered, and we're really looking forward to the next edition of Civa. Just two quick comments before we move on to Peter. The first one is, I adore Hartmut Rosa. Also, when he got a very important prize, I did the laudatio on him, and I read the book Resonance 3 times. Resonance is his answer to acceleration. It's not the acceleration, it's resonance, but it's a fantastic concept. The only thing that we really have to deal with is how to bring in the digital world into kind of this concept of resonance, because he's super critical in this regard. But on the other hand, the smartphone is a powerful part of all our lives in all generations, basically, or almost all generations. Yes, we have to be careful when it comes to social media and young children. I fully agree. But nevertheless, we kind of have to live up to this reality of the presence of the smartphone and other systems, digital systems. And in that sense, we all have to try to develop that theory further. Another important, much younger thinker that comes to mind is Nicola Schulz, and you're also in touch with him. And he kind of coined this idea together with Bruno Latour of the emergence of an ecological class. And in his lectures, he really talks about a new sensitivity. And I also think this is a very, very important concept in this regard. Okay, thank you very much. We'll come back to some of the issues you raised later on. And it's now Peter's turn. Peter.
Thanks very much. Let me just quickly set up the presentation. Does that work? Can see me. Okay, thanks. Well, I'm basically going to mirror some of the things that Eva just said in a less eloquent way. My background is computer scientist, so I will try to see it a bit from that perspective as an AI developer, let's say expanding from the technical side into more holistic picture, where I think that the issues are. I mean, it's not going to be very technical. Don't be afraid. But I tried to structure it according to like 3 principles, what I would understand as a regenerative AI. because that's not trivial. That's not gonna like happen easily. But I think in a way, let's say there's consensus already in the research community, you know, that the future of AI, of LLMs and so on is that there need to be smaller models. They need to be more efficiently trained. There needs to be better data for doing these kind of things. So these are very practical ways of looking at things. And I think they are very correct. I think this is really where research is heading. I think this all goes in this direction of a regenerative AI. But I think something is important on other levels as well. And so I think one aspect that is very central here is that such an AI is actually very concrete. The problem we're dealing with right now is that AI is a concept, is a word, is a very, like, let's say, cloudy word that people don't really know what it's about. It's also a word that easily, let's say, there's a very exclusive word in the sense that people don't know what it's about and therefore don't feel empowered to participate in the discussion, even though it affects them a lot. So I think that's one of the big issues, that this has been put out as a tool of power in a way, because when people are talking about artificial intelligence, other people might not know what they're talking about. And so it's very hard to actually participate in that. And I think what it needs to become, as I said, is more concrete. And that means specifically things like, we don't know where the computation is happening, and we don't know how much energy is actually used for these kind of things. So we need to get away from this invisibility of what AI actually costs, right? Where is this happening? What is going on here? We also see an invisibility, but we have this invisibility of natural resources, of the water that is being used, of the rare earth and so on, all the resources that are being mined for AI, and what it does to the planet in a way that it's not our concern. Those who are using these systems are not the ones who are suffering from the way that how this is built or where this is happening. There's also an invisibility of labor that is in AI and prevalent there. It's not only the data and who has created the data that has been used in the first place to build these models, but also the refinement, the ongoing efforts that are happening, like how people are surveilled in order to create more data and so on. All of this is labor that is going into these systems and not being visible. And I think all of this contributes to the fact that we don't really know what AI is. And if we think about how it could have a better position in society and like how people could, let's say, understand better what's going on, it needs to be more concrete in these regards. And what Eva already said, I think we have to untangle these myths and visions that are also surrounding it. So there's this thing about AI and this Oppenheimer moment, then the existential risk that comes with it. Also directed a connection to nuclear power that is necessary now to power AI at this point. I think we have to make sure that people understand that it's not a given. This is not deterministic. It's not like there's no escape from like reopening nuclear power plants because we want AI. There's also an entanglement between AI and space for whatever reason. Data centers are going to be taking place in space. We have to put our resources to make that happen. I think this is a narrative that is being pushed for no actual good reason. But it just serves like other initiatives that are going on. And lots of things are being just used or like submitted under the term AI because people don't know what it's about. So sustainable use of that would come from external energy. That means solar power, basically. And as a bit of a sarcastic comment, I don't think we have to shoot our best resources into space all the time. I think we have to first figure out what we want to do with it. Which gets me to my second point, that it needs to be participatory. So AI is a tool, and the question we have to ask ourselves is, what should we use it for? And in a way, we have to figure out, what do we want to do? What are the use cases? And then we can optimize it for what we want to use it for, as we have done it before. But this idea of general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, that is actually not a use case. The question why somebody would need that, why somebody would need an oracle that answers all the questions that you have, there's good reasons why you want to build something that is an information system in a way that gives you answers, that is like maybe a bit more like natural language interface to information and so on. All of that is understandable, but it's not another human or not something better than that. I don't think that's a use case we should be developing. And so open LLMs are in a way tempting when it comes to this because it seems to empower people to participate in this. But really the openness in large language models comes from having access to the weights of a pre-trained model, of a model that already exists, where we don't know what did go in there and what does it produce in certain situations. So the intransparency, the black box behavior that we have remains with open LLMs. So I think openness is very good because it has been a good principle in the development of software. It is, of course, an essential principle in research in general and so on. But per se, having the weights does not lead to trustworthy systems. What we need here is an open or a whole process of creation and use of these models in order to actually be able to call them open. And I think we need a law-abiding and a participatory process, and that can be the foundation. And my third point would be, and that brings in the arts, although I'm not going to talk about the arts that much because there's better people in this panel to talk about that, and I'm not going to tell anybody what I think it should be. But I'm sure that it has to be a creative process. So this process, as I outlined it, is neither transparent nor open. And so I think it's not really serving as a European model of progress. The way that this has been set up is a very capitalist structure. It's a very American structure. Even the response from the Chinese side resembles that in a very much in terms of like power structures that are just going in another direction. But again, I don't think that should be the European dimension here. And I think art can play a very important role in making it concrete, as I said, or in making it participatory. And also having a system like that and a system that is more European, I think is also a better foundation to use it for creative work, to use it for the arts, even though, of course, you can use an unjust system just as much because you can always have something to work against and to disassemble or something like that. But I think in principle, it would be a very important thing to have on a European level. So I want to end this with that statement of saying yes to AI. I mean, I'm researching this for 20 years now, but not in the way as it's done right now, in a European way. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Peter. I think you brought up also really, really important points, and I like that you also started to build bridges towards the art part of our panel here, which is terrific, and you have been working together in the past, and I think it's a great thing that one of the outstanding personalities in TU Informatics is really dealing in substance with artists and also cultural managers to kind of
many are, I have to say.
I know, but you're one of the outstanding, I have to say. Yeah, it's great. I have just one question which really, really interests me, and which is also at a certain point at the basis of what we can do with these systems. And you will be surprised by the question. But when I kind of use Gen AI to talk about what should the future look like, etc., and should we head for prolongation of our fossil systems or regenerative systems, or have regenerative systems, of course, I get the right answers. My question is now, talking about echo chambers, what would President Trump get as an answer if he asked an AI, should the future be fossil or should it be on renewable energies based and so on? So what is your reply to that?
I guess the answer is that the question is which AI would President Trump use in this scenario?
I think ChatGPT.
Yeah, well, I know there's like always the criticism from that side that this is a bit too woke, but I think I think this is exactly the point, that you can get the answer you want from any of these systems, right? So they are known to be sycophants. They're known to reinforce what you want to hear. They're known to be overly apologetic when you criticize them. So it's not really, let's say, a personality you're talking with, because they're lacking everything that you would want from a conversation with a real person. So you can spin it to any direction that you want, and it just is a matter of configuration what you get as an answer. And I think, therefore, it's not really like the kind of, let's say, critical information source, successor of what a library could be, and so on. the process that we had before, as it could be, and I think that's
And I asked the question exactly for that in that regard, because this is something that Europe should also work towards, to kind of get also science-based objective answers to just queries, right?
Well, that is difficult because there's always ultimately leads to the question, what is truth? And I think of sometimes the big problem, and science-based, and it's also the problem that not everything is always undisputed in science. But of course, you would want something that kind of gives you let's say, a quick answer of what the state of the art is at the moment. I think if we would achieve that, it would be very, very good. Yeah.
And in terms of climate, and so you have 99%
exactly.
or more, even really in alignment on what it means, etc., etc.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Super interesting. We move on to Laurent. You can also maybe give us a little bit of a French perspective, because you're very familiar with that.
Yes, thank you, Christoph, and thank you for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here and to talk about this very, very hot topic. I have myself a very mixed feeling about AI, and it's not just about AI, it's more about the people who are using the AI for making things around the society. I think Dietmar Schweisgut was talking about this regulator versus innovation, but we have to see innovation in which way. So there is an attitude to it, and this attitude is important, and this is also something that we have to care about. A very aggressive attitude to making innovation, is it good or is it questionable? So at the moment, we have a very, very aggressive way how to get into that technology and to make it dominant. It started with already picking up a lot of data from everyone on the net without asking a single question, thinking it is legitimate, it is not protected. So therefore, we pick it up and we train the system with data sets. A lot of things have been starting like this not long ago, but it started really with this attitude. And this attitude is continuing. It's continuously coming. And that's interesting to see that this is not being questioned. But as an artist, you are directly a target of this, of course, because your copyrighted materials is just gone into a machine that spits out some other things that you are part of. But you were never asked to be within this system at all. And this is something that I'm concerned as an artist, but a lot of other people are concerned. It's concerning a lot of information that is actually being picked up without any consent. And this maybe has to change. Or is it because it will change that we will not have these very great machines? This is the question. We don't know. Maybe there's another way how to deal with this issue, and maybe have a different way how to make it happen. We here at Interface Culture, we also concerned about these issues. The students here are coming from very, very various backgrounds, very different countries, and they study here at our master course, where there are issues that, of course, they are interested in. And maybe we can mention a few issues that they are concerned with. And so these are people who are in their 20s. And of course, they look at what they are affected with. And in the sociological aspect, gender issues is, of course, something that is being put back to them as being manipulated by a machine that is trained on data that have already a bias. And so therefore it comes back to them and find out that, well, maybe the language that is used is not exactly feminine, the gender definition, identity. A lot of issues like this are being questioned, and a lot of master theses are being also published under these topics. People rights, of course, I was talking about data, but it's also about surveillance, tracking. These are issues that a lot of students are concerned with. the bias and inequality, the ethical data usage that I was talking about, the copyright, the ownerships, of course, is really important. There's also a concern about the future. So it's a kind of angst, like really something that seems to be a worry. It's about this post-digital humanity issues. How do we integrate these machines into our society? Even the cyborg concept resurfaces, strangely enough. It's like coming back because we are affected and more we are part of this system, and it seems to be difficult to separate yourself from it. We're just within the system. The memory loss, the loss of abilities. We are talking about, a machine that does things for you, but how much do you lose your ability to make if you ask everything all the time? So basically, coding is one thing. For example, a lot of questions are now coming up. Should I learn how to code, or should the machine code for me? But we see more and more people criticizing the code made by the machine as being very generic, or not really caring about security or anything that actually the professional do. And it's also ignoring entirely the context within which it's actually being applied. And so there are many questions about, should we become just a prompter and ask for something, or should we also have a look at what is being produced? This is still in discussion. The co-creativity, I think this is now quite admitted that the machine is a tool. So it's a tool for an art, you can use it. A lot of artworks are made with this technology without being AI labeled. So the face recognition, movement, things like this are being part of many softwares today, and you can just use them. And so this co-creativity is no longer a problem. However, there are some issues with some other use of the AI. And so how much do you get dependent on these machines? Who owns these machines, and for which use they are being used in other domains? So it's ethical issues that are raised by the students, and I think it is important to have a look at all these aspects. I would say that in the EU, the innovation should continue, but with maybe some other directions, maybe some other concerns than just making empires, and maybe a lot of money. Probably there is something about the social issues. Of course, losing job is one of the number one at the moment, and that's something that we have to carefully look. But it doesn't mean we should stop innovation. However, we can direct it differently. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laurent. Well, you also touched on very important questions. My immediate question to you would be, what can you teach the students in terms of picking also a kind of living up to their potential in future professions or whatever they do? Some become artists, others become cultural managers, others go to companies, startups, etc. How can you also kind of give them the feeling that they are empowered to do something about it? Maybe you can quickly answer that question, because you raised really, really super important topic. Some of them, of course, are overlap with what has been said before. But to me, it seems that there should also be arts universities also have the kind of should have the vision also to mentally empower students to do something about it and not to be just frustrated. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have courses about AI in various formats. Some are really informative about how AI has been built from the inner part. I think Peter Knest was saying that this is a black box. Most people don't know what it is. We try to inform what it is, what it does, what it processes. Actually, I noticed that we have a lot more imagination about AI than what AI really does. It's interesting, this discrepancy. We have much more fantasy about it. It's really a basic thing, and it's not, compared to our brain, it's really basic, but it does perform very well on some tasks, especially pattern recognition, so which is good, but it's also something that has a limited we will see at one point, I think, in the society, how much to what extent it can really answer something. And it's not yet there. We see the potential at the moment. And to answer your questions, yes, so we have also another course called Critical Data. It's done by Professor Manuela Navo. And this is raising awareness about the practice, also what you are using, how you are using it, why you are using it, why do you use this technology, how much impact it has. A lot of issues are raised. It's not my domain, it's her domain, but in a way, it's part of the curricula, and it's very important for us to have that kind of awareness of the consequences of using this technology. You can use it. It depends. We are not, it's like it's based on the individuals. A lot of students will become different, maybe like you said, artists, but they will know at least what are these materials for and where they come from. I think this is this is to answer your question.
Thank you, Laurent. We move to our youngest panelist here, Merve. It's great. We talked about that also last Friday. When I give lectures, usually I ask the audience, how many among you were born shortly before 2000 or after? And I'm not talking about your exact birthday. When I talk that, so 1/5 raise their hands. When I do it at university, 99% raise their hands. And I say, look, you have excellent chances to live in robust health in the year 2100. And we can't even imagine how AI and our world of AI, but also in the world of ecology and the geopolitical conflicts will look in a couple of years. And we don't even think about 2100, but the topic, the concept of regeneration is really also about the short term and the long term, because we have no right to deploy sort of concepts for solving big problems just for the next 5 years, which are counterproductive to the longer term perspective. We have to make sure, and this is all about regeneration, that the concepts we develop help us in the next couple of years, but also in the vision up to 2100. That's what it really boils down to when it comes to regeneration. So I would be very interested in hearing your thoughts, but especially also on the topic of Europe and what Europe can do in this regard, what are your expectations, and how can you also contribute in kind of meeting these expectations?
Yes, thank you for the introduction. Yes, it's actually, in my generation, becomes building the future in a very literal sense. And this is a thing now I notice thanks to you. I'm an artist, an architect, and I'm combining in my practice art, science, and technology, and try to bring speculations and how to use these tools. Actually, today I brought my own projects, speculations, and also another artist talk, and I tried to bring different adjectives to think technology with, not efficient, not fast, but other ones. So I will share my presentation shortly. Yes, so what if Europe's contribution to AI was making it worse? It's an ironic sense, but what I mean is that it's not broken, it's not failed in any sense, but in a good sense, that deliberately, thoughtfully, slower, more imperfect, more entangled with the world it operates in. I want to argue that this is kind of counterintuitive thinking is exactly what Europe could be positioned to offer. And that is what the arts, architecture, design, and all the other creative disciplines that can lead it. Today, we currently digitize the world, and it follows a certain logic. It's clean, optimized, fast, human-centric, utilitarian, examinatory, efficient. It sees the bodies, ecosystems, landscape, natural and non-natural environments as a resources to be measured and controlled. The way we construct and digitize the world is a recognizable logic, clean, optimized, precise, and fast. It reconstructs ecosystems to be measured and controlled. And by nature, it's human-centric, but is it the best thing for us to look at the world as human-centric and us as the master of the digital and physical world? And there could be another way to build with AI, a worse way, but by this overarching logic, one that doesn't resolve complexity into clean outputs, but holds the complexity, one that doesn't position the human as the organizing center or the world as a statistical system, but places us within an entangled system. This messier lens asks different questions. Not how do we measure this ecosystem, but how do we sense it? Not how do we optimize this landscape, but how do we develop kinship with it? This shift from the clean lens to the entangled one is, I would argue, the shift towards the regeneration. And it could be Europe's original contribution to AI right now. Let me make this concrete ideas with ideas I keep returning to: slow AI and useless data. But both sound like failures, but both are concepts to explore. Slow AI is optimized not for the fastest answer, but for the most considered one. AI that introduces friction, that makes you pause, sit with ambiguity. In architecture, we have always designed for productive discomfort. A staircase that makes you choose, a plaza that doesn't tell you where to go, not the most efficient design, but invitations to the agency of the user. Useless data is what efficiency logic filters out as a noise, the scenic route instead of the fastest one. The hesitation, the detour. In my video essay, Glitch Your Machine, participants were invited to a digital protest to deliberately walk the most scenic road instead of the fastest one, thus generating data that resists the optimization of the machine. This was also a commentary on how the data is collected and how it was used, and in return, this collected data is redirecting our experience in cities, in real life locations. So it criticized how the constructed digitality reconstructs our physical reality. It is a small poetic act of refusal, but also a proposition. What kind of world does this data help build? And I want to even go further, because the entangled lens doesn't only mean making AI more human, it means making it capable of sensing beyond the human entirely. One of the most profound and underexplored capacities of AI is the ability to make perceptible what is invisible to human senses. The branching networks beneath the forest floor, the slow pressure of geological time, the patterns of ecosystems operating across centuries. These are the systems that sustain all life, including ours. And we spent centuries pretending that we are above them. This is what I mean by more than human AI, not AI that replaces human intelligence, but AI that extends human perception toward other forms of life, other scales, other temporalities, a perceptual bridge back into the systems we were always part of. In my project, Merging Visions, I work with AI-supported data visualization to map the inner networks of mountain geology. This is the project that Christoph mentioned that I was conducted in Salzburg Festspiele. This immersive environment reveals the hidden structural life of landscape built over deep time. The results is an immersive environment where audiences physically inhabit data at a scale no human body could otherwise experience. A space surrounded by luminous data of geological time, the human is not directing the data, the human inside it, a participant and a collaborator, a companion. This is what abandoning the anthropocentric lens feels like, not as a concept, but as a space that you can stand in and embody the digital nature and also the AI. So thus it becomes a companion. The art world is already recognizing this direction. Last year's Golden Nika at Ars Electronica in the AI category went to synthetic memories. This generative AI used not to produce content at scale, but to reconstruct personal memories at risk of being lost. The jury has described it as AI used not to replace memory, but to engage with it for healing, for identity, for intergenerational exchange. One project operating at the geological scale that I show from my work, another at the scale of single human life. The same underlying the gesture, AI making visible what the dominant lens had rendered invisible. That is regenerative AI. We are not, in my opinion, going to out-optimize or outsmart the leading countries, governments, and organizations. Maybe Europe should out-imagine them. What Europe has, as far as I experienced after I moved from Turkey for my studies and later on for architectural and artistic practice, Europe has something no other AI superpower has in the same form. It is culture that knows how to sit with complexity. Institutions, artistic traditions, a civic fabric that has spent centuries negotiating between cultures, human and non-human, the efficient and meaningful, measurable and felt. More than human AI could be Europe's edge. And thank you for listening to me. That was end of my provocations.
Thank you very much. I think it was a highly welcome provocation, and there were lots of words that also resonate with other panelists here. Yes. The word entanglement is one of them. Healing, by the way, is a key part of the concept of regeneration, because it's really about also healing ecosystems that are damaged already and so on and so forth. I think there's a lot of common ground here. And I really liked, let's say, the very radical proposition that you just gave us. And I have a single follow-up question before we kind of have the first round. And then in the second round, we also invite questions from the audience. My question is, it's pretty radical thinking. I like a lot of it. I really have to say, also with a longer term perspective, but we have to start now, because if we don't, then it goes into the wrong direction. Partly it already has. But my question would be, how can you bridge, how can you build bridges towards the business world on this? Because, you know, in the end, we will have transformation only if the mainstream business world goes along, and we kind of attract them to also going this path. So have you some preliminary thoughts about it? This is, I think, what you are mentioning is also, this is kind of a big moment for Europe to step in, because it's exactly what is not done elsewhere. And Europe can have also its very important part of it beyond regulation, which hasn't really worked that well so far, also I have to say, but we have to continue. So this is something that brings in creativity, also this new sensitivity and so on. But just a quick answer, do you have any ideas on how to attract the business world to it?
It's just my maybe naive hope that the business would also change. What I recently read that taste is becoming the next Silicon Valley trend, for example. Before let's say, general lens thought of the Silicon Valley tech bros as with the tracksuits and these people that didn't have any taste, but like were on their computer all the time. And this is what the funding got, these bunch of male groups taking all the fund because the technology is important. But I see in the, for example, business world, the new apps that Anthropic released, they have a certain taste, graphic design, that the values that the Silicon Valley haven't valued before, but started valuing because this is what people cared. They understood they cannot get away from the human touch, imperfection, and they try to change their image as well. So that's what a wave I hope for the business world as well, that this lens would attract the next round of investments and support. Of course, then maybe it's a middle ground between those, but I was just hoping that we are not adapting to the business directly. We are not trying to become part of it, but we change together and change the lens of what the business, what attracts business.
Yeah, and of course you always have the possibility of startups and scale-ups kind of carrying these ideas together with the arts. Thank you very much for all your contributions. We do just one quick round among us. To me, the general sense of the meeting is that, yes, it's very important that Europe kind of becomes also a leader in application, very granular applications of Gen AI and AI in general on important topics such as ecology, regeneration, and also maybe other topics, certainly other topics. But you also raised concerns about the big picture, because without the bigger picture, where we're heading, what is kind of a European way to deal with these major challenges, which directions are we taking? Do we just take over, adopt what has been developed elsewhere, or do we kind of develop our own voice in Europe? This is a big concern to all of you, I would say, and also to me. And we need a lot of creativity in this regard. So my question would be for this round, please just pick one idea of the other panelists that you would like to kind of work on or include in your own work in the future. It's very easy, I guess, for Eva and Merve, because Eva introduced me to Merve, and I think your work is also in many respects really not close, but certainly meaningful in terms of also collaboration in this regard. So I maybe start with Eva, but you can also pick somebody else's idea.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Merve, and everyone else. That was really great. Very inspiring. And I would maybe like to go from what Merve said, but then go to Peter, because I could really resonate also with the term healing, and also Christoph, you mentioned that. And for me, one really great example coming from the art, and also Merve, I think your approach goes very much in that direction. And I also wanted to bring up a project that I found very concrete, is unlearning history through AI, for example. So you would take data sets, you would see where the bias is, where the bias lies, where it comes from, and then try to unlearn it, try to create pictures that could have been. So I think not only being speculative when it comes to the future, but also being speculative when it comes to the past is something that is very interesting when working with AI, or maybe even thinking about different temporal realities and talking about quantum, for example. Also, I think there is quite an interesting, could be quite interesting to see how AI and quantum understanding, entanglement, superposition, simultaneity in the end, how they all interact. But coming from that idea, I wanted to ask back to you, Peter, because I can really resonate with, creating smaller models, make it more concrete. If you could give us a concrete example, where do you see that? How does this actually work when it comes to applications?
Yeah, I mean, like one thing, as I said, is like this invisibility of where computation happens. I think that also leads to this, let's say, um, disenfranchisement, is that the word correctly? From computers and how people are interacting with them. I mean, I think still there's some value in for people to know if they have their smartphone in their hand and there's something that's being done and they know that's happening on their device is something else than knowing that the data has been sent somewhere and you don't know what happened. I think it makes like I think that does something in terms of like a personal understanding of like your device and so on, if you're aware of these kind of things. And therefore, I think it could be one of those things, for instance, right? It could be that you just have more smaller, smarter devices that you actually have control over, that you're in charge of. I think this is a very important thing that we have both of these developments, that everything ubiquitously is run over by technology in a way, but it's not our technology. We're like it's somebody else's stuff. It's somebody else who benefits from this, and we don't even know who that is. So it's completely intransparent what's actually happening in the background. In a way, this was an idea that you don't see the computing anymore. On the other hand, I think it leads to a loss of trust and concrete, like almost haptic interaction with things in a way, because it so goes away from the object you're perceiving to what is actually happening in the background. And I think that's a big, not a big issue, but I think that's one aspect of it, right? That contributes to this. So yeah, maybe things that are more locally, and if you throw it on the ground, it breaks and it's not there anymore, right? If you throw your smartphone on the ground now, everything's in the cloud and nothing is lost. So it's basically, you can't escape somehow. And I'm wondering if there's any way of making things more embodied in that sense, that they actually have a representation in the real world. Again, I think that makes it easier for people also to understand what's going on.
May I just add one more thing, because I think this draws really well back to Merve actually, and how you make something visible, like the extraction of Earth actually, the project that was based in Salzburg. And I think this is quite an interesting, quite an interesting link. So being transparent, maybe I don't know if I may, and give that word back to Merve now, because I
Sure.
think it's concrete.
Go ahead.
Yes, I think I was already going to choose one other idea of Peter's, so it's a great bridge. Yes, I think this embodiment is an issue that does it say on screen or phones, or do we find other ways of other spaces? So for example, in the terms of data centers and how they are very remote locations and they are hidden, and they're huge, they're resource consuming, and maybe they are hidden because they're problematic for now. And as I'm now bringing the architecture hat back of my, that if we could be thinking other ways of data centers that are, for example, theaters or saunas, and they generate heat, and how do we combine the heat of data center into a public typology, for example, public space that people experiencing their heat in a different way. So this literally making the data visible through the artworks I've seen, and also maybe in the space, making it visible and letting people visualize these hidden dynamics. So that was also for me the physicality of data in two ways, as an experience, but also as a space to see how much material goes in it, how much energy goes into it, and maybe we can make the data centers in a beautiful and public way that people could experience. So this is also for me not also then a word that resonated with me from Laurent's panel, that aggressiveness, this attitude of aggressiveness. So we move away from this aggressive attitude to going into world even more aggressively, like in the extraction discourse, but we change this attitude as well through that, to be with people, to bring the data and AI to the people in novel ways.
And we don't have enough public discourse. In a recent talk, Nicola Schulz mentioned that in the last Danish, because he's Danish while living in Paris most of the time, but he mentioned that in the last Danish election campaign, to his knowledge, and he talked about a lot about it also to his family and so on, the question of AI wasn't mentioned at all. And how can you kind of have an election upcoming without dealing with these issues also as political topics? I don't understand that. And also in our election, it hasn't really had, in our last one, a lot of room. So we need a completely different attention to it. But I would like to ask Laurent, because I'm fascinated with this idea of all generation dialogue. So you have a lot of experience, but you work with students, and I guess you could also easily build bridges to Merve. What resonated with you, especially from the other panelists?
Thank you for the question. Yes, well, I also pick up maybe what Peter was saying about this invisibility, but combined with the other questions that how to bring things in the business in Europe, this process is very simple. It's called research. So if research is being done and the result of the research is being trusted by the EU, there will be innovation. That's absolutely fine. But if we start to always doubt about everything and then just use the tools that some other countries have been made out of the EU, will be dependent all the time. This is a question of just realizing we have the tools and we have the intelligence, we have actually everything. We have very great universities, we have everything. So the emergence of something is through trust. We have to trust in ourselves, in making things happen. And this is something maybe it has to change because it has not been there. And so far, everything is going away from the EU when it comes to innovation. So it's a very strange circumstances is that this doubt is in there, and how do you overcome it? It has to be some success somewhere, and this AI thing is a new territory. It has not been explored fully. It has been explored in some ways, but it could be explored in another way. So let's try to develop something, have a critical, of course, look at it, but it could be, for example, instead, we talk about aggressiveness, instead, well, let's bring it together instead, making it, we know that joining forces is good. It's a good thing. It's actually building it together. Cities have not been done by an architect. They have been done by people buying some land, making the city. So it's the same. It's actually the same structure can emerge in any kind of configuration. This would be, maybe it's not answering directly your question, but it's the concern that was raising through the discussion.
I think you made a very important point here about, on the one hand, collaboration. I'm a huge fan of collaboration. I've always tried to bring about collaboration in the arts. But the other thing is also make Europe way less dependent or even independent in the medium term when it comes to AI from other regions in the world. Yeah, and I think it's possible. And if we all join forces, including the arts, and of course research and technology, it's achievable. And it's maybe one of the very important things that should receive much broader attention also in the European Union. Okay, Peter, just you're the last one now to kind of build a bridge there were some bridges already from others, so build a different bridge, please.
I'll try. I think I want to pick up on what Merve said with the slow development. I mean, it resonates well with what I said about this participatory process in a way, because that process is slow, right? So like having AI systems being disruptive all the time, just to have something. I mean, a very concrete example is OpenAI, who has to like bring out something new every half year, and every other tech company, because it's expected, whether it makes sense or not, and whether they have to roll back afterwards or not. The point is always there's this expectation that something great will happen. And I'm not sure that's actually the thing. Like, these are very rare moments, like that ChatGPT moment, maybe then the DeepSeek moment. And like, these are actually like big moments, but not the announced hype cycle thing of like every half year there's going to be a revolution happening. And I think we don't have to follow that hype cycle, right? I think we just have to be very clear that this is not where real progress and where real innovation is happening. So I like this idea of slow processes, and it always reminds me of a talk that Eva Fischer gave in Vienna, I think a year ago or so, where she said like this problem with social media is that everything is always so fast, and there's no way of like changing things and rolling things back. But all the progress that we have as a society is actually coming from slowing down processes. Like, there's always another instance. You can always object to things. There's another way of looking at things. There's no death penalty that makes things final, because there might always be something new we find out, and so on. So all of this progress is really from not being certain about things and being definite about things and being fast about everything, but really being aware of the fallibility that we have, and the fact that we make wrong decisions, and therefore not building our society on like these emotional, like fast decisions that have to happen. And I think this is a problem that we have a lot, this overheated cycle that's going on. And therefore I think it's very, very smart and very good to actually slow down this development process and reflect on what's going on. And that means having multiple people, and when they say it doesn't work, then not being forced to move on, but going back and thinking what could be better. I think that's essential, really.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. Well, we are coming to the point where we open up for questions or short comments via the chat, I guess, in this regard. But let me just, before we get questions, say two things. The first is we have come at a crucial moment, because this is really a decisive decade. So the next couple of years, the next 10 years, decisive in the sense that we really have to find our ways as a humanity, but also especially in Europe, on how to deal with AI and upcoming superintelligence, at least the beginnings of superintelligence, and the companies will sell it as superintelligence. They have already announced that, whatever it means. So we have to be aware of, it's not a world of business as usual anymore. We live in times of decisive action that is necessary to take the right courses, and we have to, of course, discuss what the right paths are in this regard, and the slowing down is one of them. The second comment is from my side that we have to fight dualism. And dualism really means, the tech companies say, the best thing for humans is to generate a lot of data and then to become digitally immortal by uploading their mind, and the rest doesn't really count. And of course, this kind of technical post-humanism vision is something we should really fight. Also, what the singularity of Ray Kurzweil and other concepts entail, because we experience our life not only with the mind, but also with our gut and our body in general. And I think this is also a very important European thing to bring this to the attention. One of the major researchers is Antonio Damasio in this regard, to kind of get rid of this dualistic concept. And it's one of the decisive paths we also have to take, in my view, in the future. And the third comment is, you know, that AI and future superintelligence, if we do it right, can become important forces also to kind of help nature, bring us closer to nature. It sounds crazy, but it's really, I'm not the only one saying that. Also an eminent artist such as James Bridle talking about natural intelligence, biological intelligence, and also artificial intelligence sees it in a similar way. And we should use these technologies not for a lot of nonsense, but for kind of helping us to tackle the right questions. Okay, so we have, I don't see the chat questions now. Are there any? No? Okay, then we wait further. Maybe
we had a hand up earlier during the talks. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
somebody was raising their hand.
I'm also asking the organizers. I don't see anything here. We are not. I mean, I'd like to, while we wait, I'd like to give you my final question for in 10 minutes, but here's one. Yeah. Okay, the question is, what do you think about semantic AI? So we do it in the following way. I think the one among you who feels closest to answering the question should do so. We don't have the time to have all four. If somebody else wants to join in, it's fine, but we shouldn't do a round on each question. Peter, maybe you want to answer that question.
I can answer that from my perspective, my technical perspective. Maybe there's something else is intended with that question, but semantic AI, I would just understand of like, making a distinction between what we're talking about, like all these LLM-based systems now that are the public discourse about AI, basically machine learning-based approaches. But of course, there's other approaches traditionally that are, let's say, more explicit, more modeling-oriented, more logic-oriented, and so on. And so there's a lot of research that has happened over the last decades in terms of semantic systems and AI that is building upon the semantic information, knowledge representation, knowledge graphs, et cetera, And in a way, I think it's the big challenge of AI research to find that bridge between something that is basically just emerging from unstructured data in a way, and something that is very much like representing our understanding, the concepts that we have, the way we at least tell ourselves that we're thinking, right? According to certain rules that we are applying and so on. But there's a lot of abstracted cultural knowledge that we already formalized for ourselves. It's not just all emergent. So I think this combination of bringing together what we've created in terms of artifacts and like building that, turning that into new knowledge, but also what we have formalized already, like bringing these things together is going to be one of the central questions, because that is also the path of controlling a bit that AI, right? Because it's more directed towards what we think it should be. And therefore, yes, I'm very much for it, but the combination is tricky and a big research question.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. So we take one more question here. How can a special, more thoughtful European way be combined with a profit-oriented capitalist business model that really cuts to the core of what we're discussing here? Who feels kind of called upon to answer this? Maybe again, Peter, you're closest to the business world here.
That's, don't say that ever again. Difficult, yes, because our business world is very much aligned, let's say, with those Silicon Valley principles at this point, right? We've adopted a lot of these ideals. Also, again, I'm quoting disruption and so on here. So I think it's very, very difficult to like adopt one side and then not go the full length. And if you're stopping halfway, then you're behind because you're not doing it right as the system kind of requires you to do it. It's a bit too abstract to say it, but I think you get what I want to say. But I think that's exactly the challenge. The challenge is not to adapt a different way of AI to, let's say, a capitalistic Europe in that sense, like that is shaped according to the US standards, but using the European idea and blueprint and what we want to have, how our economy is working and so on, and trying to translate that to the requirements that we need in AI. So traditionally, I mean, our industry was very, very, very different. And so there was always a different path in, Industry 4.0 and so these kind of things of how industry should react to all of this as well. But I think that's the right way. I don't think we have to abandon our workers' rights. We don't have to do all the things that we've achieved just because AI requests us to do that, and therefore the American system behind it. But if that's not compatible with the European way, then the question is, what do we need the AI for? And then we have to adapt that. Yes. Maybe Laurent has an answer to that as well, since he raised that topic before about innovation. But I think it's very much about like switching the mindset around and not starting from the wrong end already.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We're going to wrap this up. Laurent, please.
Yes. Thank you for the bridge. Yes, when I was talking about research, we have actually a second model of intelligence is our own brain. So it's based on a completely different technology. It's a biochemistry system that uses ions and a lot of things that we can't build today. But this consumes 30 watts, basically, and it's the equivalent of these huge data centers that we see popping up around that take the power of entire cities. We have a model under our nose, but we need to understand what it is. Maybe AI can help then to go towards that model that is actually much more energy efficient, doesn't take all these resources. And perhaps we can also build materials, who knows, making maybe also, we talk about semantics. Semantics works for other things than human beings. They can also be applied to maybe understand maybe what's the nature we still don't understand around us that is very foreign to us. Maybe then there is a bridge that could be connected to our understanding. So these are innovation that can be leading to a complete breakthrough. And we have to understand that any kind of findings in this direction can be a potential for something really great. But we have to put our focus on that and not on getting a bigger data center with the exact same things. It's already done. We are behind. So maybe a different focus would be good. We have to look at what is not under the spotlight. If there's something under the spotlight, you will always look at there. But there is something in the dark, but we have to reveal it. And that's where things should happen. This is maybe a thought experiment to do, but it raises more questions, but it is an interesting part.
Thank you, Laurent. So I'm going to drop my last question to all of you, because we have a third question here, which I want to raise, and I would ask Eva and Merve to reply to this question, and then we really come to a close. And the question is, what do you see as main obstacles for Europe in creating a transformative, participatory, inclusive, and ethical AI? So, Merve, you want to start with that?
Sure.
So should I repeat?
No, I'm also able to see it.
Good, yeah.
So I think Europe I can answer from the artistic perspective that maybe since the AI has all these connotations and it's there's a hard break in because it's technology and related with business, capitalism, and we all linked it to a militaristic governmental tool. And so maybe the main obstacle is actually this propaganda of AI and we should change this image of it. That's what I would say the main obstacle. So there are already artists who is trying to has participatory AI, inclusive and ethical, and they shouldn't be the marginal ones, but the mainstream ones. So we should have this different image of AI and should keep repeating it and make it more mainstream so that people would feel like participating in it and be part of it rather than rejecting it. That's what I would say. It's the idea of AI is the main obstacle.
It's the rising of a new hope. Okay, great. Thank you. Eva.
Yeah, and I think my answer would maybe be a little bit of a summary of many things that we already heard. Yeah, this picture about AI and how to change it. I think one of the main challenges might be time. You know, talking about acceleration, talking about competition, about speed. We do need time. We need to educate ourselves. We need to educate each other. It's also about building public trust and maybe also coming up with best practices, right? And I think art and education can be major forces, but we do need time for that. And so maybe that is it's a challenge, but yeah, coming back to slow AI as a movement, maybe this would be my answer.
So it's a wonderful conclusion. Thank you very much. And we still have to reflect how to bring the business world in on that, which is makes it quite interesting. Thank you very much. We should all stay tuned on these topics, both in the political realm, and business realms, but also in the arts and creativity realms. And I would like to thank all of you panelists for what I think was really a great discussion. And I would like to thank Dietmar and the organizers here at the French Austrian Center for doing this. Thank you very much. And maybe you want to say a few words at the end, Dietmar?
Well, thank you very much. I think it would be presumptuous and almost impossible to summarize anything from a very rich discussion. What I really found very interesting was that it was one of the most interactive panels I have seen in a long time. And I think this is something which has also made it very stimulating and interesting that you all reacted to each other, making clear that for many things there are no solutions, but there are avenues opening up. I very much liked also the way slowing down maybe and the benefit of it, but also one word which comes to mind is that in a competitive environment which is so much dominated also by American turbo capitalism and tech capitalism, the way maybe is not to outcompete but to out-imagine.
Imagine, yeah.
This is something which I will remember also from that discussion. So once again, thank you very much for all that. I have learned a lot, and I hope we can maybe continue this and follow up on it. Many thanks.
Thank you. Thank you also to our audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Bye.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.